including two young lawyers by the names of Maximilien Robespierre and Georges Danton. Some of these men formed a radical new political party called the Jacobin Club and quickly became leading figures. While many members of the Third Estate simply wanted more equality, a growing number in this Jacobin faction would begin calling for something even crazier: the removal of the king entirely. And this is where, in August, leaders of the National Assembly, with help from a certain Thomas Jefferson, adopted the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, an incredible document that guaranteed liberty and equal rights to all men. And when I say men, despite its glaring shortcomings in gender equality, the massively radicals, such as those in the Jacobin Club, were outraged that the king wasn't to be removed entirely. National Assembly, actually now the Legislative Assembly, feared that these nations may decide to attack. Then why don't we attack them first? No, you idiots, we are definitely not ready for war yet. Did somebody say something? He fled and took refuge in the chamber of the Legislative Assembly, where Robespierre and his radical Jacobins were gaining ever more power. Given the developing situation, the chamber decided to hold a vote, and in what some considered to be a second revolution, it was decided to suspend the monarchy entirely. One man in particular that Robespierre and his radicals really wanted to see executed. Austria and Prussia pledged that after they defeated France, they'd return King Louis to the throne. Well, checkmate Austria and Prussia, because you can't return a man to the throne if he's already dead. Citizen Louis Capet was put on trial for treason. Obviously, he was found guilty, but his punishment was less certain. Pierre insisted the revolution could only live if the king was dead. A vote was held, and by just one vote, Louis was sentenced to the guillotine. The economy getting worse. It seemed the government just... Robespierre declared the Jacobins to be an insurrection and political force. Robespierre and his radicals would be in almost total control of the government. And the radicals were now in control, and they believed not only was Robespierre and the rest of the radical faction were having none of it. A new committee of public safety was established with 12 members. Its purpose was to protect the new French Republic from its enemies, and it basically became a 12-man dictatorship with Robespierre as its leading voice. The revolutionary Robespierre wanted to scare France's enemies straight. In September 1793, it was announced that terror would be the order of the day. In other words, Monsieur? Did I just hear you say Monsieur? That's the old style of address, my friend. To the guillotine! To the guillotine! To the guillotine! And you look like you're thinking anti-revolutionary thoughts. To the guillotine. Max, we're sending way too many people to the guillotine. To the guillotine! Chop, 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 chop. It was insane. All across France, about 40,000 people were killed for Robespierre had saved the revolution through terror. Hey Robespierre, so we were thinking that since things are finally going better, maybe we should rein in the terror. And while we're on it, we could possibly start taking it easier on the church, and also try to end this costly war. Pierre seemed to go, for lack of a better term, a bit mental. He was hell-bent on creating what he called a republic of virtue, and for him, this meant amping up the bloodshed even more. He began alienating himself from the rest of the convention. He created a new annual festival of the Supreme Being. My children, bathe your immortal souls in the virtue of my republic. Robespierre's ultimate mistake, however, came on July 26, when he made a speech to the National Convention, in which he said this: I have in my hand a brand new list of enemies to be sent to the guillotine, and many of you are on this list, but I'm not going to tell you who yet. What do you think of that? Oh no! 2 days later, Robespierre became the final victim of the monstrous terror and paranoia he had created.